Howdy, howdy, and welcome back to yet another Workshop Wednesday. Today is a Getting Started edition. We're going to talk about how to audit your own Google Analytics setup. Before we go too far into this, of course, my name is Chris Mercer. Welcome aboard. I actually go by Mercer. Everybody else here calls me Mercer. You should as well. I'm the co-founder of a company called measurementmarketing.io, and it's our job to help you figure out how to use all these tools. Maybe you figured out how to find us through the podcasts and talks that we give, maybe through some of the platforms that we actually share our content with, at least some of our content, I should say, like CXL Institute, Digital Marketer, Measure Summit, etc. Maybe you're already a member over at measurementmarketing.io. However you found us, happy that you are here. It's our job to help you learn these tools. Specifically today, we're going to talk about Google Analytics, and we are definitely going to use the framework today. So we're going to quickly review this, and then we're going to revisit. So remember, the framework is 3 key steps. You've got the planning, building, and acting, and then really 3 keys to each step. So we want to move from marketing the blind to the point where our marketing is predictably growing our revenue and results. How do we do that? First, we plan. Remember, key number 1 is questions, asking the right questions. Then we make sure we got the information available to answer our questions. And then we plan out ahead of time what actions we will take based upon the answers that we get. That's the planning stage. Then you move into build, okay? We're going to go into the build. Build, the first key to that is identifying our traffic, the who, what, and why. Then we're going to go into our results and measure for our results so we know the different stages of our customer journey. Then we make sure that as we are recording all this information, it is structured in a way so that it naturally tells a story. At that point, we go into step 3, which is act. The first key to that step, of course, is reading the reports. So we have our benchmarks. Then we use those benchmarks to forecast what's going to be happening in our near future. Then we measure against our forecasts. That's what will tell us what's working, what's not. And then we know where to optimize, which of course will ultimately give us this predictability that we're looking for. Now, the audit itself is really going to focus on this build phase. In fact, traffic, results, and structure is where the audit really happens. So we're definitely going to be revisiting that step. And that's what you're going to see in today's workshop. All right. Now, when we go through this, there's a lot of moving pieces and parts, and I'm going to go through it kind of quickly because it is a kind of a high-level thing. Academy members, we already have courses like your Win Your Measurement Plan in there. Toolbox members, we got the Toolbox, the audit tool in the Toolbox, and I'll show you part of that as well. I also will highlight a tool in this workshop that's completely free that everybody can use. So if you don't have access to it, I'll show you how to get it at the end of it so you can use that as a framework as well. But you're more than welcome to just follow along, and remember, just focus on one thing. It's here's, I didn't know I should check for this. Something like that is kind of what you're looking for. Then you practice that skill, go through a couple of audits on your own, come back, rewatch this workshop. As you improve your skills, you will naturally find another new one thing. All right, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Getting started. How to audit your Google Analytics setup. Now, this is a popular question that we are often asked in our Ask an Instructor support system in the Measurement Marketing Academy, where students will come to us and say, okay, I've got this analytics set up. I'm not sure where I need to really start when it comes to doing stuff. Well, the first thing is we obviously want to audit. We got to know where we currently are in our Google Analytics setup, what stage that implementation is currently in, so that we can actually go through and finish out our build. Okay, as we're going through. Now, normally I would just go and say, let's go ahead and start. We're going to take a look and we're going to dive right in. But in this case, I want to revisit our measurement marketing framework. So that's what I want to actually do in this particular case as we go through. Now, remember, the framework itself, as we go into it, the framework itself is 3 steps. It's plan, build, and act. Before you audit your Google Analytics, you want to at least have some sort of basic understanding of the plan. Because remember, we got to go from marketing the blind to the point where the marketing is predictably growing our results, right? Our profits, our revenue. So the planning step is still important. Do not skip the planning step. Kind of the audit could be considered part of your planning, but remember, the planning step is really 3 keys. It's what questions am I trying to answer? What information will I need to collect in order to get those answers? What actions will I take based upon those answers? There should have at least been some sort of discussion. You should at least have some basic idea of these 3 steps before you move into the build. So the build is where we work on traffic, the who, what, and why. The build is where we adjust our results and doing all of that. And the build is when we make sure we improve our structure so that our traffic is naturally connecting to our results and it's giving us a story of what's working and what's not. And then, of course, then at that point, you can go through read, forecast, and optimize to get to where we want to go. Now, the audit itself, remember, you should at least have a basic understanding of your KIA, the questions, the information, the actions, the QIA. We always call that KIA here at measurementmarketing.io. Then we go into, as part of that process, or right toward the tail end of it, you start going, okay, well, let's look into Google Analytics so we can see what our existing traffic looks like, what our existing results look like, and what our existing structure looks like. Okay, so that's how to actually think about it. So when you come into your audit, you're first going to look at your traffic, see what that is. You're not making any adjustments yet. You're just kind of seeing what's there. You're going to check a look at your results, see what that is. Then you're going to check a look at the structure, see what that is. That helps you to finalize your plan as you come through, so that when you do your build, you're able to say, okay, I already know what I need to adjust for the traffic. I already know what I need to adjust for the results. I already know what I need to adjust for the structure. And you go through and you do those stages and steps. That's what will improve the implementation itself. Again, so that it becomes more useful when you're reading it for a story. You can forecast based upon the results you're getting and ultimately optimize against the traffic that you are sending, so you know what's working and what's not. Okay, so now with that sort of out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into Google Analytics, because I'm going to show you, and we're going to use both. We're going to use Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4, kind of the new kid on the block. Now remember, Google Analytics 4, we're going to keep it kind of general because the platform does change so much. So we're going to keep with the stuff, especially for this workshop, that really affects both platforms that you would look for. And I'll show you kind of the different views of both. So this is Universal Analytics, hopefully the one you already know and love. Then there's the new kid on the block, GA4. So we're going to bounce back and forth between these as we check these different things. Now remember, the first thing we want to track for is traffic. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to follow that framework, our measurement marketing framework, where we go traffic, results, and structure. Part of what I'm doing, and I'm going to kind of do this in my head, but I want you to know that this tool exists. There's the admin audit that we have, the Google Analytics admin audit. This is the basic one. We have this as a free tool available to everybody. So if you're watching this, you have access to this in the toolbox member. If you're a toolbox member, it's in your toolbox. And of course, if you're an Academy member already, also in your toolbox, you have access to this tool. And of course, we're going to start with traffic and results, right? That's the first thing we're going to start with, following that framework. So the very first thing I'm going to come in for, and remember, this is not me changing anything or anything like that. We're just auditing to find out what needs to be changed, what is good about our current analytics setup, what might need to be improved about our current analytics setup. That's what we're looking for. So if I come in, the first thing I'm going to do in traffic, of course, is to go into all traffic in our Universal Analytics. We're going to go to source media report. I think by and large, that is the absolute best place to start. What we're looking for is the traffic report currently telling us a story of our who, what, and why? Who is sending us traffic? What type of traffic are they sending us? Why are they sending us the traffic? So I will come through here, and the first thing I'll do is do a little campaign, secondary dimension coming through here. And this is just so I can kind of see that story, right? The who, what, and why. So of course, Direct None and Google Organic, you're going to see the sort of the standard stuff back here. What I'm really looking for in an audit is, yes, I will see this stuff, and it's good to know, obviously, that this sort of more generic traffic is coming in and where they're getting the traffic from. What I'm really looking for is this stuff here, the things that would be UTMs, right? Those of you familiar with Google Analytics, of course, already know about UTMs, but that's how we identify. It's how we tell Google Analytics, oh, it was an Infusionsoft partner, an affiliate that mailed for us, and they were sending to the Academy, or it was an email that was sent to for member activation, or it was an email that we sent from Infusionsoft for the Academy to get them to purchase the Academy, or it was YouTube and it was a social. So somebody maybe clicked in a link in a YouTube video that came over from YouTube for the purposes of Academy. So we can see a story told by our traffic. And this is what I'm looking for. Most of the time, it's not there. In fact, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly switch into the Google Analytics demo account, which I love using as a good example here. So we're going to come in and we're going to go into demo accounts, and we're going to go into Google Analytics. And I'm just going to use the Universal Analytics in this case, so we can see that, because that'll show you kind of what we're talking about here. It's kind of like a before and after. So if I go into the all traffic, I go to source media report. I'm in the Google Analytics merchandise store now. So this is just their demo account, so they can, we can kind of see what the reports look like. It's a great account for that. It's great for that. It's a horrible account for setup stuff. So now I come through here and I see, okay, there's the source medium, all the different traffic coming through. I see Google CPC, I see partners. I see things like this, not set, not set. This tells me, okay, there's an implementation issue, right? Now I'm not going to go fix it. I'm just like, okay, mental note, need to address this, right? UTMs are not correct here. Something got messed up. This not set traffic. It's kind of weird. I would come through again. I would still add my little campaign in, because I want to make sure that the campaigns are coming through proper and they're telling a story. This sort of stuff that I see, maybe not. that's coming through. This tells me that their campaign setup isn't quite as general as it needs to be, because the campaign itself should not be very specific. It needs to be general, because otherwise your campaigns report breaks down. And this is what they're doing right now, is they've got a campaign that is specifically tied to this specific source medium, but I can't coordinate it for anything else. And here's what I mean by coordination. When you look at your traffic, you see I've got Academy here, I've got Academy here. This is partner traffic. This is affiliate traffic for the purposes of the Academy customer journey. This is our own email traffic coming from our autoresponders for the purposes of moving prospects and customers through the Academy journey. This is YouTube traffic. That is social traffic. That is stuff that we've put out there that people are clicking on. They're coming in, again, for the purposes of the Academy. And this is why we look at the campaigns reports, because I can come in here in our system. I can come in and I can say, well, Google Analytics, tell me a story of how all the different traffic sources are working together to help move people through the Academy itself, right? I can ask Google Analytics that. Of course, it's not going to cooperate with us here, so I'm just going to refresh this very quickly, and we're going to see if it just glitches. If it normally doesn't load within 15 seconds, I just don't have patience for that, so we're just going to reset the whole thing. So I'm just going to refresh very quickly. And then I'm going to show you again the before and after with the demo store and how that works. So now we're in our campaigns report. You can see here, there's Academy. This is the Academy campaign. So what I can do is I can click into the Academy. Now, what's going to happen? What do I expect to happen? In my audit process, what I would expect to happen is I'm going to have a whole bunch of different source mediums that are all coordinated under this Academy traffic, so that I can see, oh, all of these source mediums are doing this thing to move people through the Academy. Look at all that. That's beautiful. I love geeking out over this stuff. So I can see this coming through. Now, what's more important is results, which we will come to in a moment, but I can measure the different results that I'm looking for, because every specific source medium may have a unique purpose in that journey. Maybe some of them are making them aware of the Academy. Maybe others are getting them to engage with the Academy. Others are getting them to buy the Academy. So they all have different missions, and they're all united in the same direction to move people through the customer journey that is the Measurement Marketing Academy. That's for us. Now let me show you what most people do. This is what Google's is as well. You come into the campaigns report. We go to all campaigns, and this is the problem with how this is set up right now. Look at this. So it's look at this. 17 different campaigns that are coming through here. And you're like, all right, well, maybe that's not too bad. Great. Well, let's just click in here. Well, how's our t-shirt campaign set 1 doing? So we click on this. I guarantee you're not going to see a bunch of source mediums. You're just going to see Google CPC, which we do. So we cannot tell a story. Our Google Analytics platform cannot tell a story how all the different traffic sources are working together to move people through a journey, because it's not set up to do that. It wasn't properly set up to do that. It wasn't thought through. So I now know my traffic needs help in this Google Analytics merchandise store. And like, if this was the client, I'd be like, okay, we have to figure out UTMs. We have to figure out how to coordinate the UTMs so they tell a nice story. And we're going to help people understand what a source should be, what the medium should be, what the campaign should be, and we'll help them along the way to address all of that. So that's a very, very important first step. You always start with traffic, because it's the easiest thing to fix, and it's really the easiest thing to diagnose, because you'll start to see that, hey, their UTMs aren't here, and it just says Google Organic and Direct None, and you never see email. I like doing a quick search for things like that. So it's like email. Let's go look for email. Is that even being tagged anywhere? In our case, it is. In a lot of cases, it isn't. If I come in through email here, I'm going to use the merchandise store very quickly. So we come in through here, and I type in email. And I'm just looking for like, hey, is email here? No emails. Well, if they're emailing out, which most companies are, they're probably not UTMing it. Obviously, they're definitely not UTMing it, assuming they're emailing out, which means it's all showing up as direct none, which means opportunity that I have to be able to go back to this client and say, okay, we're going to restructure those UTMs. We're going to restructure how your traffic is coming in so that it naturally tells a story. And this is where I start adding to my measurement plan to say, okay, I got to work on the traffic part. Here's what I need to do. Or I come into a client like this and I would say, oh, okay, actually, they're doing pretty good. They got a lot of good stories back here. I see they're doing, different types of traffic sources like the social stuff. You might expand out. Obviously, you can expand out all of the different results that are coming through to see if there's anything that looks a little weird, right? Which there might be. But I see here just a good smattering of stuff coming through. I see, oh, there's podcast traffic. Okay, great. So they're a little more advanced, right? I know they got some stuff and it's a pretty good sign. So that's sort of what I would look for. Now in the GA4 side, When you look at GA4, how do you do this? Come into acquisition reports, and then you can do either user or traffic. This is user level. This is more session level if you want to kind of shortcut it to think like that. But when you come in here, what you should see, again, remember, this is the beauty of UTMs, is they apply to both platforms. So Universal Analytics or GA4, both are using the UTMs. So if you have the issue with one, then you have the issue with the other. In our case, this is ours, so you can see everything's kind of coming through. However, I do see this. Not set in GA4. So there may be an implementation issue, which there definitely is in GA4. So, that's where it goes, okay, well, I might have to adjust this piece in GA4, but their UTMs, the structure that they're using to tag in all the traffic, that's okay. But we might need to pull out some other things, right? So some things might be bot traffic, not necessarily bad bot traffic, like this is little status stuff. And so we need to remove and filter some things out. This is the things that will get better and more useful as GA4 improves. Remember, everything that you can do in Universal, you cannot do yet in GA4. This is as of June. We're recording this in June 2021. So if you remember, some of the stuff you just might not be able to do. Like in this case, can we push everything lowercase? Because we have to keep everything lowercase. So I don't have a capital F Facebook and the lowercase f Facebook because GA is case sensitive. And that can be a pain sometimes, right? If that's there. So we can fix things like that, filter out certain things. Some of these capabilities exist already. Some of them, for some of the things you might want to adjust, may not yet, but certainly will, especially as the year goes by. So always take GA4 with you do your best to get it to do what you want it to do, but know that maybe it's not possible yet for some of the stuff. But it would absolutely be something I'd be writing down on my measurement plan to say, okay, I got to go through GA4 and make sure I get it as close as possible to what the Universal Analytics version is saying as we go through. So that's traffic. Next, after we talk about traffic and you sort of go through and you have the basic understanding, I've got my basic action steps. I don't need to go into deep dive detail of a million different things I'm gonna do with traffic. Just get progress. Remember, get good enough to get going. Then you can come back and make it better later as you need to. So we do that. Now, once traffic is done, you talk about results. In results, I always look toward my goals to see if the goals are set up, number one, to make sure e-commerce is set up, if it is applicable to the client itself. But what I'm really looking for is ACE goals, awareness. Awareness of a customer journey, did they complete the customer journey? Did they engage along the way? That's what we're looking for here. So in this case, as I'm coming through, I obviously know because this is our company. We have the ACE goal. Here's the awareness of the offer. Here's when they completed the offer. Here's when they engaged with the offer, right? So we can see that. I've got all of that set out. I have lots of different goals here that are measuring lots of different stages of various customer journeys that are going through the measuremarketing.io site. So I can tie, awareness of the academy to, as an example, to specific traffic sources. And are these traffic sources actually helping to make people aware of the academy, et cetera, right? So we have all of that. I can tell that story. Let's look at Google Analytics. This is the demo store for Google. So we're gonna go back to our source medium. I'm gonna take out this little email so we can see all of our traffic sources. And if we look, we go, okay, e-commerce is set up, that's great. But it looks like all of it's coming from direct none. Maybe, but maybe not, right? Maybe there's a problem with the traffic and there's a lot of traffic that's in this direct none that should be pulled out and UTM'd so it can be identified. For example, email, probably a lot of emails back here, people buying from, and they're not getting credit. Those emails aren't getting credit. Direct none is instead because it's not tagged. So that could be an issue I want to investigate. But it's good that we have e-commerce working, assuming that this number is accurate. And I should not have said accurate. I can't believe I just did that. It's always the A word, never accurate. Useful is what we want. We want useful. So I would go to the cart system or whoever controls the cart system in the client's organization and say, hey, what were your, what's your revenue from, June 2nd to June 8th? And they would say, oh, well, it was roughly 42,000 or 41,700 or, 40,700, close enough, right? It's like, cool, that's good enough. Probably no major issues. That's all I care about right now versus 0, where there's no e-commerce set up. And you're like, okay, maybe we've got an issue with that. So that's the thing you check with e-commerce. Then, of course, goals. Are the goals telling a story of customer journeys going through the site? Now, in the case of the Google Analytics demo store, they kind of are. So we have a completion goal here of when they complete a certain purchase. They have engagement as well, which is in this case engaged users, not as specific as I would do it, but it's good that they're measuring some sort of engagement. And then they've got some kind of other engagement where they entered the checkout, where it's like, these are people that saw the checkout step. So we can measure for various stages of customer journey. It's good. I think it's good enough to get going of what they have here, but it could be a little better. And I might want to level this up and say, well, let's start when they see a product detail page. That might be the awareness step that we're missing here. And I would go back and set up a goal. Again, adding to the measurement plan that I would review with the client and then move forward once they give us the approval for that plan. Now, that said, of course, if it's your own company, you can just make these decisions on your own. Goes without saying, but figured I would say it anyway. So there we go. So that's sort of how we think about the traffic and then the results. Now, in GA4, results are technically events. So you have these conversion events and you have event count with all events. So everything, it's kind of interesting with GA4 because they don't have goals. The goals are gone. So in lieu of goals, they have these conversions and you have various types of events that you can turn on as conversions, right? You just do it in the event section. You flip them, you flip a switch literally where it says, oh, treat this as a conversion, and it will be, and it'll show up in this list. However, they also show up in this list. So what I like is looking at this list in GA4 and say, what are the major behaviors that we are measuring for, i.e. goals, right? That's kind of how I actually think about this event count. It's like, these are the different micro conversions that we want, the different behaviors we want people to go through. And so these are all these different things here, like, oh, there's a download, there's a first visit, generate lead, page views, of course, a purchase, a scroll, and you start to see all these different things that are being measured already. What I'm looking for is things that maybe aren't being measured, like maybe scroll wasn't there, or maybe purchase wasn't there, right? Things like that, big giant ones. And then what did the company, the client, turn on as a kind of the next level? What is the big milestone of all these events? These are the ones that are the milestone events, i.e. again, goals, that we think are important in a customer journey, which again, follow the ACE model. Awareness of the journey, completed the journey, engaged along the way. And many times you'll have a lot of different engagement steps based upon what it is that you're doing, whatever that customer journey is. So that's sort of how that works. So that's where you find that in GA4. Now, again, it's not about taking action and doing all your, you don't stop and then fix everything right now. You got to build your plan out, and then you go through it, give it some time to chill a little bit, think it through. Then you go through and do your builds, right? Then you go through and change everything. But at this point, we're just auditing for the results. So now we've got our traffic, we've got our results. We have some basic next steps, some actions that we can take to improve both. Okay, so we improve traffic and results. Again, you can follow just a basic audit that will help you get through those steps. And then that's all I would have is like, hey, this is a priority fix, or, this just needs some attention. I'll put in some notes there, right? That's sort of how this whole thing works. Next, structure. Now this one, a little more to it. This is the most important part, is the structure. It will take you the most to get this down, because UTMs are really easy. You sort of figure them out, you structure them properly. For those in members, we have in the toolbox section, there's something called the traffic tracking toolkit that will also help you structure out UTMs so that they all sort of coordinate together. So you can get all that set out, right? Very easy to do that. Goals, very easy to set. Conversion events in GA4, very easy to create and set. So that's not really the hard part. You can dump this information into GA, but it's still just random bits of data unless it's structured properly so that they naturally connect dots. And that's what the structure is so important for. So what are we talking about when we talk about structure? Well, first we'll talk about the admin levels in the admin screen, and then we'll go into others. So if I go back into Universal Analytics, now we're going to jump back into the admin section. Very first thing, beyond a shadow of a doubt, when you're working with Universal Analytics specifically, views. Always multiple views. If you see just all website data, which is the default view, which is not unusual, it's what most people do, but you've got lots of opportunity for lots of wins for this account, because that's not a great setup. And you need to set up 3 types of views. You need to have your production view, you need to have your testing view, and you need to have your backup view, right? The backup data view. Now, of course, ours, we have a lot of all of them because we teach this so much, so we always like to create them. But generally speaking, you will have at least one production view, probably 2. You'll have one with parameters, one with no parameters would be the ideal, is what I would suggest. Then you have one testing view where you're testing your own stuff, where you're not filtered out of the data and the traffic. But of course, in the production views, all of the internal team members would be filtered out so they don't mess up the numbers. So you have your testing view, so you can test stuff. And then the backup view is literally, in case of emergency, it's useful for debugging if you're trying to figure out if a filter is getting in the way, things like that. So you have to have multiple views. In your views, very quickly, when you go in and you check for filters, how much did they do to adjust and to really truly set up Google Analytics? Because remember, people think turning on Google Analytics is setting up Google Analytics, and that is not true. So when you just pop the code on the page, you've activated Google Analytics, or your clients activated Google Analytics, and it starts filling itself with all this different data, which is meaningless practically because it's just being dumped in and there's no structure. So you have to then set it up so that data comes into the database in a way that's a little more structured and more likely to tell a story. So it's easier to read the reports. That's what filters help you do. They help you clean stuff up. Again, we have lots of workshop on filters. Definitely Win Google Analytics setup. We have an entire Win course on how to do this. Academy members, you have that back there already in the Win courses section. But you would set up your views. Then, of course, you want to make sure you set up your goals. Win Google Analytics basics. And we'll actually help you set up goals and UTMs as well, so you can learn that structure. There's a whole course. So Win Google Analytics setup, Win Google Analytics basics, go through that if you need to learn the skills, and that's how you set all this stuff up. So then you've got a nice little story and structure. Now, you also need to make sure your property is set up. So what we're going to do is in Universal Analytics, you would come into tracking info, you would check on data collection and data retention to make sure all those policies are in place, of course. The real key for structure stuff is going to be referral exclusion, checking to make sure that multiple domains have been added here, probably, if needed. Again, this depends upon when you're going through the funnel audits. In a Win Your Measurement Plan, which I highly recommend if you haven't gone through that yet as a Academy member. In Win Your Measurement Plan, we talk about the KIA process and pods. Doing the purpose offer details audits as you're going through customer journeys and measuring for stuff. This is where you start to see some of this. And you realize, oh, okay, certain domains are going to have to be added in here. I have cross-domain issues where I'm bouncing back and forth through different domains or iframes or all the junk that tech throws at us as measurement individuals, that we have to actually measure the customer journey through as customers hip hop through the different pages. So we got to make sure that we can measure and keep the dots connected. This is where you start to see, did anybody even try that? Or does it just show the one domain? Again, maybe it's just the one domain. A lot of times it's not. So you check for things like that as well. Definitely go through all the other settings here, session settings, etc. Make sure everything else makes sense. If they're using user ID, make sure that's turned on, etc. Make sure all accounts are linked. That's a big one. I always like just going to all products to make sure that I can see everything top down, because it shows you here's what's linked, here's what's not. So you can see if there's an opportunity for a particular client to hook something up. And that's kind of the overall. Again, a lot of this is in the structure section, so you can go through and just kind of remember this. So I want to make sure that you have know that this is there. Again, free tool in the toolbox area. Now, if we go into, I'm going to go into Google's. We're going to do the exact same thing. This is the demo store. First thing I'm checking on is views. Look at that. Production view, testing view, backup view. Great. So far, so good. Now, technically, if I go into raw data, what I should see is no filters. That's really what a true backup view is. In this case, it's filtered, so I would actually create another one, because a backup view should never, ever, 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 ever have filters, ever. But in this case, again, it's a nice try. I would change it. So that would be something I would mark down. Just something to look for. Do they have goals in the various views? I can see this again. Backup view should not have goals. So we would adjust that. So those little things that we can adjust, here and there as we go through. Let's take a look at cross-domain as we come in. I can go to tracking info, see referral exclusions. I see just the one domain that's there. Again, maybe this is okay, or maybe there's other domains in the customer journey. How would I know that? I would have already gone through the customer journey and experienced it as a user. And I'm tracking this as I go through my pod analysis. Again, we cover that in Win Your Measurement Plan, but you go through your pod analysis and you're looking in the URL for what the different, browser pages are and making sure, okay, that's a domain I'm going to have to make sure is measured as we go through the customer journey. And it should be in here. So we're checking for things like that. And of course, you can go through and check out session settings, make sure they're a useful setting, make sure the data collections are turned on the right way, if they're needing Google signals or whatever else, if they're doing user ID, all the other stuff that you would normally set up if you need to. Product linking, right, coming through. Of course, in Google's, it's all going to be connected. So we're good there. Now, GA4. It's a little different currently. And I'm always going to, with GA4, you just have to realize this is always the most current truth because the platform changes all the time. And there's always enhancements that are made. Because if I had done this 6 months ago, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, you couldn't do. Well, now they've, a few months later, you can do. In months from now, there'll be even more things back here. One of the things I desperately wish they would bring back is views, because they're incredibly useful and it's a mistake to not have views. However, I'm just one man in a YouTube universe. So hopefully they will hear this on YouTube and bring back views, because it's incredibly useful. And I know that what they're really trying to do is get people to use analysis reports, and specifically Data Studio becomes your views now is really what they want to do. But there is a strong use case for views, because every view can be set with unique elements that can help people get the answers they need in GA4. That said, I have heard kind of through the grapevine, again, always most current truth, that views are not coming back. So if that's the case, so be it. I'm going to assume that they're not coming back. Again, I wish they would. But there are no views to check, so we don't worry about that. So what do we check? What you check for is data streams. So you come into the data stream, you make sure all the data streams are available. So if they have an iOS or Android app, I would expect those here, but of course we don't, so we don't have to worry about that. So I click into the web app, which most of us will. It's probably what's going to be there. And what I'm looking for is the setup that's down here. So I'm going to come into more tagging settings, and I'm going to look and see, have any events been modified? Have any events been created that are new events that are created? Because sometimes it's being created in GA4, but maybe it's better for Tag Manager to do stuff like that. Then configure your domains. We can see all the different domains that are coming through. This is cross-domain stuff as we're coming through, right? This could be some of this not set traffic that might be coming through as well. We've got defining internal traffic to make sure that internal traffic rules have been set up, so the internal team is being filtered out. And then we see list unwanted referrals, right? These are all the different referral exclusions, essentially. Remember, these are new. So if you haven't been back in GA4 since, let's say, February-ish of 2021, this is new to you. You probably don't know these are here. This is why it's important to constantly use GA4 at least a couple times a month, a few times a month to get back here, because things change and there's always new stuff. So you have that. So, but these are the things I'm looking for to say, okay, is this really set up? Is the client taking full advantage? Now I'll tell you, in this exact audit, I wouldn't say the client is taking full advantage. This is our account. I know we're not taking full advantage. This is the account we set up. I want to say this is probably almost a year ago that we set this up. I think around October, when we first taught the second update of Win Google Analytics 4. We'll be doing a new update of our Win Google Analytics 4 course now that new features are available like this stuff, because this stuff didn't exist. When we do our new update, I'm going to do a complete setup from scratch. So you're going to see that. So I'm not too terribly worried for my purposes right now. For us, we're using GA4 again as kind of like this experimental platform that we're playing around with. We're learning how to structure the data, because the data is definitely structured differently coming through here in terms of how it comes through. And as we improve that, as we get used to GA4 as a platform, in our case, we're just going to rebuild our GA4 setup from scratch clean, so it doesn't have all the experimental stuff that we've been playing around with back here. And then we're going to start using our goals, and yours should be as well, is that early 2022. For us, hopefully at the end of 2021, but early 2022 for sure, we will walk into the year as the goal, walking into 2022 with GA4 as our primary platform, meaning that's the one that Data Studio is connected to and giving us all of our results from GA4. So we got to make sure all that's there. But again, I would quickly go through here and just check, okay, do I have my default reporting identity? Are we using user ID? If this is here, which is the default one, which is perfectly fine, or is the client using user ID? Is that stuff set up? How is Tag Manager, right? That's the sort of things I would take a look at as we go through. Do we have the accounts linked, right? Is Google Ads linked up? I can see Google Ads accounts. Do they have BigQuery? Is that an opportunity that they might be able to do? Because remember, in GA4, BigQuery's a free link. In Universal Analytics, it's the paid, only the premium level. The 360 has that. But here in GA4, BigQuery linking is included. So that could be an opportunity for the client or for yourself as you go through. Now, there's a lot more to the structure of stuff, but that's the high level, because what I'm making sure is that my traffic sources are connected to my results. And if I'm crisscrossing through a bunch of domains, as an example, and I lose that connection, I've got a problem with attribution, and I'm never going to be able to tell what traffic sources are creating awareness or completing the customer journeys or helping people to engage at various steps in the journeys. I can't tell that story if I don't have that connection. So that's why I wanted to cover that high level. But remember, in this tool, you'll see lots of other things like, okay, let's check out the users and make sure that the user management is correct. And we don't have everybody as an admin. That's a big mistake people do. They add everybody as an admin so that everybody can remove people, which you shouldn't do. So there's other things to check as you go through. Now, this one is really based on Universal Analytics. As GA4 improves itself, there's going to be additional settings for privacy and consent and everything else that's coming out, especially through 2021. There's going to be, I would imagine, pretty major adjustments coming through at least third and fourth quarter would be my guess of 2021 when that stuff comes out. And we'll update this tool accordingly. So there'll be Universal Analytics tabs, and then there'll be GA4. But generically speaking, the steps are the same. With the exception in GA4, you don't have views. So just remember that. But everything else is generically the same. So you can still use this. And at that point, you've gone through and you've done your Google Analytics audit. You've got your traffic, you got your results, you got your structure. You should, at that point, have this filled out, have a nice little hit list of what actions you're going to take to get the account, the implementation, the setup to the next level. Remember, good enough to get going, then you come back and make it better later. Keep in mind, some things are harder to fix than others, like maybe cross-domain. You might not have access to another domain or something like that. Some things you can fix right away, like UTMs and setting up a goal might be really easy. Other things, maybe you need to get access to stuff. So just phase things in, right? So it's like, oh, I'll do this the first round. Then maybe next month we'll do this. Then maybe the month after that we'll do this. And you sort of plan it out like that. So again, you can use this tool as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and bring this little workshop to a close. What's been your one thing? Hopefully you've got more than one. I know for me, the biggest lesson starting out was just to know that Google Analytics had to be set up. I could not use the tool until it was set up, and turning it on did not mean setting it up. It just meant activating it. There's a massive difference between activation and actually setting up GA. Once it was set up, my one thing was UTMs. And it wasn't just using UTMs, it was using them in a way where they coordinated with each other. Because everybody always asks, especially us, they'll come to us and say, well, we're trying to figure out how people are moving through a customer journey, what traffic sources are doing that. But they don't use UTMs in a way that will tell that story. But if they did, it would be super obvious which traffic sources are causing which result, which ones are good at awareness, which ones are good at completion, which ones are good at engagement. You would know that if you adjust that strategy. So for me, the UTM stuff was the most useful when I was first getting started. But again, it's up to you. Take your one thing, practice that, come back, rewatch this, pick up another new one thing. That's how you improve skills. Now, next week, we are going to go into a Beyond Basics edition. Remember, every week we rotate editions. This was kind of a beginner topic. But next week, for those that have a little more skills when it comes to Google Analytics, we're going to go Beyond Basics, and we're going to talk about measuring offline conversions in Google Analytics. And we're going to touch base on Universal Analytics and how to do that there, and whatever the most current truth is for GA4, which will change. But we're going to be talking about some pretty cool stuff to enlighten you as to how to measure offline conversions, things like phone calls, things like that. They don't actually rebills, right? How do you do that sort of stuff? It's possible with a few tricks. So we'll talk about that next week. In order to get that workshop, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And again, we've got a nice bump in subscribers. I'm positive, I'm guessing, I'm hoping that you're out there sharing it, because it's got to be coming from you, because we're not really good at promoting our own channel. So I really rely on those of you who have your peers out there that's like, hey, you should check this thing out. It's really pretty cool, or sharing it. And just thank you for doing that and for continuing to do that. It's been awesome. So thank you for everybody out there doing that. And like I said, once you subscribe, it'll notify you when the new workshops are available. You can take a look at it. The other way you can do this is in the Measurement Marketing Toolbox. I've mentioned that a couple of times. This is our free level of access. It comes with a bunch of tools. You get access to the toolbox, including that Google Analytics audit that I was showing you. That spreadsheet is in there. The UTM traffic tracker is in there. Like all these different things that are in there that are tools that you can use to bolster your own measurement marketing career. Helps you get started, at least gives you some basic steps, and again, completely free. So you can join that as well. That's just measure.tips/WW. That will take you to the toolbox page where you can sign up. Just name an email and it'll create your account for free. The other option for those that have the ability to do it, if you've got a budget and you really want to learn this stuff and you want to dedicate to it, Measurement Marketing Academy is where to go. The Academy itself was built to do this, to help you move through, okay, what questions are important? What information? How do I know what information is even available? How would I actually collect it and measure it? What actions could I take, right? And to think through this process as you go through. So that's our job, is to help you get through this particular framework. Now, a very quick tour as we go through on this. So when you start out in the Academy, you have your dashboard. You have access to these 6 blocks up here. The Win courses, it's traditional courses, right? So it's, we have a server side. Actually, this is a new one that's coming out next week. So I'm pretty excited about this one. We've got a guest instructor, Stockton, that's going to help us out with this one. So we've got Win Tag Manager server side coming through. You can see this is the one we did last month, the one before that. We always either do a new workshop, a new course, or an update to an existing course, typically every 4 to 6 weeks. They're constantly updated. They're also organized by topics. So you can see Google Analytics stuff, including GA4 Basics, the one that was done in October, probably will be done. I think it's scheduled for now August as an update. So we'll be doing that one. Tag Manager back here. So you can see all the Tag Manager stuff, dashboards and reporting, Data Studio stuff, and how to think about, tracking funnels or traffic attribution, measurement strategy, which for me is the hardest one, I think, for most people. It's not so much how to set up a goal in Google Analytics. It's like, what should a goal be, and what do I actually use it for? That's the sort of stuff that strategy is all about. So you can see all the different courses that are back here. So that's the Win Courses section. Next is On-Demand Workshops. That one's pretty basic. That one just has all of the workshops. It's these workshops technically, but they've been edited down where all of this sort of pitch stuff is taken out, and they're edited down to student edition. So a little faster to get through, a little easier to get through. And the reason is not so that you're supposed to watch these each week, though you certainly could. It's so that you have them as a resource. So you can go through here. You can search for let's say user ID, because you're trying to set up user ID measurement or something like that. And it goes through a searchable library, searches all of the courses and all of the workshops, and it shows you everything where user ID is mentioned, so you can go through and actually get some help with what you need. So you can kind of get unstuck, and it's more of like an on-demand thing, so you can get through that. So that's the on-demand workshops plus the courses. Again, you have access to all of these. Any updates that come through, you get access to everything. The area where if you need to get help, you have Winner Circle, which is a community as well. You've got the toolbox. I will show you that very quickly, which is here. So this is the toolbox. There's our audit. You can see it right up there up top, so you can get access to that spreadsheet. There's the traffic tracking toolkit right down here, so you can get access to that as well. And of course, if you really want help besides your peers, this is kind of like a public community that you can ask people questions that everybody can see. But here is the Ask Instructor support. This is where I think most of the value is with the Academy. I love courses, don't get me wrong, but let's face it, you can watch a lot of the stuff on YouTube. But to get help from somebody, personalized help, it says, oh, hey, make sure you do this, and here's what it looks like. You can use Ask Instructor support, enter your question, put in screenshots and videos. Please do that. Lots of our Academy members love this when they do this. They put in screenshots and videos. Then our instructors will send back screenshots and videos to you so you can see it. And it's so much better to see somebody say, oh yeah, hey, right here in your setup, check this button, check this box, right? This is the thing that's causing the issue. So it's like having a consultant on call. Typically answers come within 24 business hours or so is where we try to keep this to. So that is the Ask Instructor support system. And that's the entire Academy. And of course you manage your account, right? Upgrades, downgrades, that sort of stuff happen there. So that's the Academy itself. Very quickly as we go out, in terms of the value that's back there, remember you've got courses, the Ask Instructor support, on-demand workshops, the community, the courses, all of them is what you get access to, including all the updates, anything that's new, doesn't matter. If it's a course we've created, you will have access to it. The courses themselves, roughly a $3,500 value, because typically we sell them. If we sell them, it's about a couple $100 a piece. So that's where we get that value from. The Ask Instructor support, worth at least $500. It is unlimited, by the way. Ask as many questions as you want. You can ask 12 questions a day. We love people asking questions. The more questions that you ask, it's because you're using this stuff, and we love that. So our instructors love seeing that. On-demand workshop library. We used to sell these workshops individually for $20 a piece. Way back in the day, it's how we got started doing this stuff. That's a $4,000 value. It's over 200 workshops, probably 250 some odd workshops at this point. Then the Winner Circle community. I think most communities like this are worth at least $97. There's a lot of really cool people back there. Some that are more advanced than we are because they're doing some really cool stuff. They're better at technical SEO than we are. They're better at JavaScript than we are. And they all help each other out, which is it's a really cool spot to be in with the Winner Circle. So all of that you have access. It's $8,500 every month as an Academy member. You have access to all of this all of this training and support that's back there. It's an incredible, incredible value. Remember, your job is not to go through and watch every single course, because I promise you, I will make videos and courses faster than you can possibly consume them. It is not about making sure you get through the entire library. It's about making sure that whenever you need something, it's there. Whether it's an on-demand workshop, or it's a course, or it's an instructor that you can pull over, or it's somebody in the Winner Circle, there's some place for you to get the support that you need to help you move forward with your measurement marketing journey. So with that, if you go to measure.tips/get-academy, you can see the monthly and annual options available. I am obviously a fan of the annual consider the source. Of course, I'm going to say annual, but it just makes sense because it is a cultural shift that you make, and you'll find there's so much to measurement, and you really want to be a part of the community there. But monthly options are available as well. So whatever makes sense for you, take a look at that, measure.tips/get-academy. All right. With that, we'll officially bring this one to a close. This has been Getting Started, how to audit your Google Analytics setup. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.